The families of Israeli hostages and captives have demanded that the ceasefire with Hamas be terminated if the 19 bodies remaining in Gaza are not returned. They say the agreement cannot continue to be implemented without Hamas returning all the hostages. David Mencer is a spokesperson for the Israeli government in the office of the Prime Minister. Thank you for coming on the programme, Mr Mencer. Do you agree with that if Hamas don't return all the bodies of the hostages by a particular time, then the ceasefire agreement is off? Good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon, Tom. It was the very first line of the agreement, the promise that our hostages would be returned home, both the living and the dead. We have been overwhelmed here in Israel with the emotions of 20 live hostages which came home. I cannot begin to tell you the joyous feeling in this country of those 20 young men who have come home. I went with the Prime Minister to visit some of them in hospital the night before last. Incredible scenes, lots of tears, lots of these guys shaking from their 2 years experience. But to the families of those 19 Israelis who were killed by Hamas, they were taken, they were alive on the morning of October 7th. And their families of these hostages have a commitment from the Prime Minister. It's a very, very clear commitment that everyone must come home. That's what the agreement says.
So how long do you give it, Mr Mayor? Or how long does the government give it?
Well, it's the very first line of this agreement. It was why we entered this agreement. There are parts of this agreement which are difficult for Israel to swallow, but because we were getting all of our hostages home and Hamas agreed to that part of the agreement with the guarantees of Qatar and the USA and all the others, we were under the impression that would happen. So for the memory of those who've given their lives and which are etched forever in the story of Israel, we have a duty to bring every single one of them home.
President Trump's comments seem to offer Hamas some extra time to find the bodies of those dead hostages because they're buried under rubble, because people are having to go through it. Is that taken on board by the Israeli government? This might take some time because of the devastation in Gaza.
Well, of course it's taken on board, but I must tell you, Tom, that over the last couple of nights, Hamas have been telling the world that they can't find these hostages. And when we have challenged them, and when the US has challenged them, then suddenly these bodies have been returned. So unfortunately, this is a jihadi terrorist organization, more renowned for suicide bombings and the murder of their own people, as we're seeing on the streets of Gaza right now, than to keeping agreements. So this is what we're dealing with. There are 19 of these bodies.
Yep.
Let me tell you, I was in a meeting with President Trump in the Knesset, Israel's parliament, on Monday, and the families of these people who have not come home yet, their bodies, they said, don't think for 1 second, Mr. President, that this is not saving a life when you're bringing a body home, because the mums and the dads were saying, you're saving my life.
For sure.
When
Understood.
I have this body that I can bury.
If that's part of the agreement, that is part of the agreement. Can I ask you what threat was posed by the 6 Palestinians, 6 Gazans, shot dead by the IDF the other day, just as the ceasefire agreement came into place?
That incident happened. Our troops had withdrawn to what's called the yellow line. They advanced towards our troops. Warning shots were fired. Verbal warnings were given first. Warning shots were fired towards them. They kept on advancing towards our troops. And for that reason, our troops, in order to safeguard their own safety, had to open fire. But I can guarantee you that every measure was taken to ensure that they were well aware that they were posing a threat to our troops. There are very, very clear lines now about where our troops have withdrawn.
What threat did they pose? If there is evidence for a threat being posed, what threat did they pose? Did they have weapons on them? I don't know, bombs, whatever. What threat did they pose?
They posed a threat to the lives of our people, of our
soldiers. In what way, Mr Mencer?
915 of our soldiers
I know.
In this war, and you're asking me what threat Gazans posed to them, and I think that's slightly naive.
But did they have weapons on them? I mean, if they're wandering around with weapons, I can understand that that's
closing in. If there are people closing in on our soldiers and they're told not to proceed and they continue to proceed in a threatening manner, The duty of Israel's soldiers and of our commanders is to defend ourselves, and that's precisely what has happened. Let's not forget what Hamas are doing right now on the streets. Hamas haven't changed. They're still the same jihadis. They haven't turned into Norwegian peacemakers. They are a jihadi organization with the same objectives they had at the start of this war. So our eyes are wide open about what this jihadi organization is.
Understood.
And when they approach our troops, we will defend ourselves.
You talked about the various meetings you've been in recently, President Trump, with Prime Minister Netanyahu. Are you looking forward to meeting Tommy Robinson as he arrives in Israel? He arrived yesterday, I think.
The Prime Minister has no plans to meet with Tommy Robinson. Tommy was invited by Minister in the government, Minister Shikli, look, I think this is a British issue rather than an Israeli issue. Tommy is the one that got hundreds of thousands of people on the streets of the UK. Tommy is the one that even 1 million people, I saw certain reports on the streets of the UK. So this is not an issue for Israel. This is an issue for the UK.
But why is he invited?
Well, you'll have to ask Minister Shikli that question. He wasn't invited by the Prime Minister.
No, but he's a diaspora affairs minister. You're a spokesperson for the Israeli government in the office of the Prime Minister.
I am.
Is that a decision that this minister has made sort of apropos of nothing or sort of unilaterally? Why is the government of Israel extending an invitation to Tommy Robinson?
This Minister Shikli is the person you should address those comments to, because Minister Shikli invited him.
Right.
Because of the real issue we have with Islamic extremism on the streets of the UK, who are supporting Hamas. That's the real issue which is happening here. And it's a British issue. It's not an Israeli issue. We're on the front line of fighting this form of barbarism.
Yes.
And we're fighting your battle too, Tom.
The Board of Deputies of British Jews and Jewish Leadership Council issued a statement saying Tommy Robinson is a thug who represents the very worst of Britain. Do you agree with that?
Look, what we know right here in Israel is that this is a global struggle between barbarism and civilization, between medieval fanaticism and modern freedom, and Israel stands on the very front line. We are the dam holding back a flood of extremism. And when we fight this extremism, we are defending not only ourselves, but the free world. But if you want further comment about the visit of Tommy, then you should speak to Minister Shikli.
Okay, but you disagree, or you agree with the British, the Board of Deputies of British Jews, or is a sort of no comment situation?
I don't speak on their behalf. They can speak on their own behalf. I speak on behalf of the Prime Minister's office.
Let me ask you then about some news that has broken whilst we have been speaking, if you don't mind.
Sure.
I see that Aston Villa's Europa League match against Maccabi Tel Aviv next month is set to be played without any away fans of the Israeli club at the game. It's reported that West Midlands Police have advised Birmingham's Safety Advisory Group to hold the match at Villa Park without away supporters due to safety concerns around the fixture. A number of threats have been made around the match, which are understood to have been taken seriously by police. About 120 travelling fans attended their game against a Greek side, PAOK, on September the 24th. There was heavy police presence. There was a pro-Palestine protest outside the ground. I wonder what you make of that. The police now advising it would be unsafe for the fans of Maccabi Tel Aviv to come to Birmingham.
Well, this is like the same question you just asked me about Tommy Robinson. This is a UK problem. You cannot appease extremism. Our Prime Minister has made this extremely clear to Keir Starmer. It is weakness when you appease extremism. As Churchill famously said, that you are merely feeding the crocodile in the hope that it'll eat you last, but eat you it will. Extremism needs to be stood up to, not appeased, not accommodated. It needs to be stood up to. That is how you win over extremism.
And the extremism in this case is that fans of an Israeli football team would be so unsafe in Britain's second city that they're being advised not to come.
Look, I haven't got the details of this case. You've just shared it with me, but that would be an extremely sad state of affairs for Britain, not for Israel, for Britain. That Jews and Israelis would feel in some way unsafe or not unable to go to a football match, for heaven's sake, on the streets of the UK. That is a problem that Britain must face up to. That is a problem that the Britain's government should not appease, should not, appeal to the good nature on the day after a synagogue is attacked in Manchester, that maybe it's not a good idea to scream from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free, which is an anti-Semitic chant, and to appeal to people's good nature. Extremism must be stood up to. It is weakness, nothing more, nothing less. And what happens normally when it comes to election times is that weakness is normally swept away. That's what political strategists understand when leaders are weak in front of extremists.